What's the worst thing someone tried to correct you about something you're specialized at? My wife has a friend who studied zoology who once told me that cows can't run or jump. I grew up with them. I, more than once, had to run after or away from them after they had jumped a fence. Cows are ducking fast when they want to be. Wrote software for a large interactive art piece. It was presented in such a way that it encouraged self-discovery of how it was used, but it wasn't difficult and most people picked up on the main operation of it very quickly as it should have been. There were 3 stations that interacted together, but separated by some distance. I see some guy very flamboyantly operating the device. It created music, lights, and fire and explaining how it works to a small crowd around him. I'm intrigued, so I walk over to hear him. He's figured it all out and basking in the adulation of those around him. But he's wrong. Like, way off. So, after listening a bit, I gently and politely point out how it differs from what he is saying. He looks around at his crowd and tells me I'm way off and don't get it, that I just don't understand. This is more perplexing because simple operation and observation contradicted what he was stating. Anyway, I again politely explained a bit more to further illustrate where he was wrong. He told me I just didn't know what I was talking about. I hesitated and considered just thanking him and walking away, but then thought better of it. I looked at him and told him I wrote the software for what he was doing and had been writing and running it on my laptop at home every night for the last 6 months. The crowd's attitude changed. People thanked me and I wandered off. It was weird how invested that guy was in being right and the center of attention. At least he was polite at the end. I work in lightning protection here in the States. I do the estimating and the designs for the largest company in the Southeast. Have 4 going on 7 years. Certified through our industry certification company. The amount of engineers and architects that love to argue with me about the code is astounding. I live that code. Being I estimate and design systems, my main job is to know that code. The worst was the Army Corps of Engineers. We had a project that their designer designed that was in the bid package drawings. Pretty standard. Pick out the materials requested and ignore the incorrect design. That is how we bid it, won it, and designed it. This would have provided them with a fully certified system. In our business, a UL Master Label certification is as close to a requirement for every job as anything can be. 2 weeks after we submit our design, it comes back with a revise/resubmit stamp and a very snarky demand from the Corps that we change our design to the one provided in the bid package. I went back and forth on email and calls with the engineers trying to explain to them that their system would not work, was potentially a dangerous hazard, and ultimately could not be certified or warranted. They came back basically with, "We don't care what you say, we know better, do it." So I did. Designed exactly like they had, and put a disclaimer on the drawing saying there would be issues and we were not responsible. A few months go by, it's installed and ready for certification. They call the inspector out, and he fails it without even getting on the roof. The army is pissed and tried to come back at us. I politely forward the countless email chains to the officer in charge. Now they scramble to get it up to code. As a consequence, it resulted in us issuing a change order to bring it up to code that was around 75% of the original cost of the project. Edit. This has also now been posted at r/malicious compliance. So go show the love over there, and thanks for the advice. Thank you for the silver. I didn't specialize on it, but when I worked at the deli in my local grocery store, I had a guy come in asking for some sliced ham. I asked him if he wanted Black Forest ham, honey baked, or mesquite ham. He looked at me and said, "It's not mesquite, it's Mystique." I pointed at the sign and label on the actual effing ham that said mesquite ham, but he still corrected me. I gave up and gave him his damn Mystique ham. This was a good 15 years ago, and I'm still mad about it. I'm a professional pastry cook. The GM at my new job tried to reteach me how to crack eggs. A new house gets built next door to mine, and shortly after the owners move in, they knock on my door to complain that my house is built too high. I explain that my house was/is built on flat ground and their builder has built their house lower and undercut my fence. The guy proceeds to give long-winded spiel about how earthworks are done and my house is too high and I have to fix it. I then explain that I do earthworks for a living, have done the earthworks for 300 plus houses in my suburb alone, and around 1200 in the local area. I name his builder, site supervisor, engineer, the exact floor levels in the street, and the law that says that he has to pay to fix my fence. He still hasn't paid, and legal procedures are beginning soon. Edit 1. Earthworks in this case is the removal of topsoil and any mud/clay/organic matter from beneath where the house is going to go and replacing it with clean compacted sand, trimmed dead flat to within 10 millimeters. Edit 2. Because his block was lowered and leveled to suit his engineer, he is responsible for retaining the land around him, which is now higher than his. Edit 3. I was prepared to let it slide because his place being lower now helps my drainage in heavy rain. But when he wanted me to pay for his retaining wall responsibility and would not pay for his half of the fence, I decided that I had enough bluster and bullshit. Time to pay up. I got shut down by this actually. I was arguing with my cousin while we were in an old hydraulic elevator. I said the hydraulic elevators are slow, crap and have far more failures than cable elevators. The guy standing across from us laughs, shakes his head, and says he's an elevator repairman, and that's not true at all. Shamed. My parents are Italian. I speak Italian, and I've heard people in the US who are 1/4 Italian at best, or who once ate Italian food, correct me on the pronunciation of any number of things. Yeah, I've forgotten how to say a lot of things, so maybe I'm not a specialist per se, but sauce isn't called gravy in Italy, sorry. My friend and I went to Dapper Day at Disney last weekend, where people dress up in vintage wear. One of Disney's photographers asked my friend if she was Disney bounding interpreting a Disney character, and she replied that she was simply a generic dress circa 1955. The photographer began telling us how she was really much more late 1940s, and that we may have researched it, but he lived through it, and next time we should look at a picture. We are both professional theatrical costumers whose strengths lie in historical costuming, and her dress was taken directly from a 1955 catalog. Further, based on his approximate age, and being generous that he may have aged well, this man was definitely not older than 5 in 1955. I'm a Harley mechanic, and I swear most Harley riders have to pretend they know everything about their bike. I don't even argue with them anymore. I just tell them what's up, and if they want to debate about it, I say okay and walk away. Lol. You wouldn't believe the number of times people tried to tell me that people only become diabetic if they eat too much sugar and insist they are right. I'm a type 1 diabetic, diagnosed at 14 months. Was I drinking soda from my bottles and using ring pops as pacifiers then? On how my dyslexia affected me. My own dyslexia. Not the concept of dyslexia, but my day-to-day functioning. I know when and how it impacts me, and the difference to forgetting my glasses and being unable to see things at a distance. People without their ID constantly try and quote various laws about being able to order alcohol when out with parents. I work in a pub which is part of a chain. We are regularly tested for Challenge 21. No, I'm not handing you a pint when you can't prove you're old enough and wouldn't be willing to pay the £1,000 fine I'd receive. r/don't I out now home is a great subreddit to binge these kind of stories. I'm an ornithologist and have handled literally thousands of baby birds. Someone in the neighborhood was asking on our neighborhood Facebook group what to do if a baby fell out of its nest. I told her to put it back. A guy hops on, no idea who I was, and went off about how the mom would never return if you touch the baby, and that she should just try to raise the baby, not easy if you don't know what you are doing and don't have the supplies. I informed him it was an old wives' tale. Of course the mom would come back. That fired him up, and he went on about how I was an idiot and didn't know anything and I should just shut up. I informed him of my job and added a picture taken that day of me holding 4 nestlings. I added in an article about me for good measure. He decided to double down and continued to tell me I was clueless, and he knew for a fact it was true and people should believe him because he was right, and I should change professions because I clearly didn't know what I was talking about. Ugh. I'm not really specialized, but a redditor tried correcting me about the geography of my country Norway, claiming that it was very much flat like all the other Nordic countries, and he refused to believe me when I told him that it's the opposite and it's filled with mountains. I have worked in a tire garage for nearly 10 years and am female. I can't even count how many times people try to tell me how to do my job. No, you can't cross-rotate my tires. You will break a belt. The tires will explode. Sir, we haven't sold bias-ply tires in over 10 years. We only sell radial tires and the way I'm rotating them is specific to the drive axle of your vehicle or my personal favorite. Sitting there as a customer lays into me for 30 minutes about how we sold the magnetic tire receipt never had an L in my tires. Until I bought your tires I've had 3 repairs since I bought tires from you guys. This is a stunt to make money off of me. If only I knew how to make rubber magnetic, I'd be so rich doing all my free repairs. For a short time I was teaching in a school, and at the end of the year an inspector visited to go over the way I had corrected the final exams. He insisted that the answer to a particular question was not the one I said was correct. He was the one who had written the question. I argued with him that I was very sure that I knew what I was saying. I had written a thesis about this particular topic. It took a lot of effort not to punch him in the face. I'm a climber. People tell me to wear gloves all of the time. There is a form of climbing where gloves would be somewhat acceptable, although even then a bit questionable, but in free climbing / bouldering you cannot wear gloves, because your fingers actually allow you to grip onto smaller pieces of rock. I had to leave r/welding for this reason. I'm a welder on nuclear submarines with over 14 different X-ray welding qualifications at this company alone. I would constantly get into arguments with people who are new and have no real world experience with welding. The amount of wrong information being thrown out left and right over there is insane. There are plenty of very knowledgeable folks there, but they are overshadowed by the ignorant. I'm an identical twin and a big biology nerd. I had someone insist that fraternal twins are paternal twins and explain why she'll have some BC they've leapfrogged through her husband's family. Edit. I love the convos this reply started. I'll use the platform to say that I once specifically asked my genetics professor in college if a woman can inherit a twinning gene through her father. He said yes, he believed so. It blew my mind. Of course it does not affect the man's ability to have twins, but it can potentially affect future female offspring. Got a ton of these when I worked at a video game store. My favorite was a guy who came in around the time Skyrim came out and asked if we had the new Elder Scrolls game. I said, "Oh, you mean Skyrim?" He laughed condescendingly and said, "No, I mean Scrim." Thinking he was just mistaken, I was like, "Oh no, it's called Skyrim." "No it's not. It's pronounced Scrim." At that point I realized he didn't even want the game. He just wanted to show up the girl working in the game store with his superior knowledge. Also had someone come in demanding the Mario game on PS1. When I said no such thing existed, he immediately went ballistic, screaming that it does exist, and he played it at his friend's house. He eventually stormed out of the store yelling about how stupid I was. Guessing he'd had that interaction at a few other game stores that day,